What's going on? I'm JT. This is the Go Live Lively podcast. It's not a very active podcast. The last podcast I've done was in June. It was about weight management. This is Linux 2018. What I normally do is, for the last two podcasts I've done on Linux, titled Linux in a year, is I'll cover the Linux distributions or operating systems that I'd use during the year. But since a lot of things have been going on, I haven't been interested in trying a bunch of different operating systems or distros anymore. I'm still a big fan of Ubuntu Studio. Ubuntu Studio that's my go-to. That's my favorite. That's the one that I prefer. I'm always ready to talk about it when someone asks about the different operating systems with Linux. Whether they're experienced in Linux or not, it's always the one that I'm ready to talk about. This podcast would be probably more fittingly called Open Source Software 2018. That's because for the year I've been focused on doing so much with what I already had and what I already have with Ubuntu Studio. Available at ubuntustudio.org, and I've said it about 4 times, but I haven't talked about what it is. It's a distro that's based on Ubuntu, which of course is based on Debian and the Linux kernel, but it's pre-packaged, or it has pre-installed all this software for AV production. There's stuff for producing music, videos, creatives in general. You do graphic design, animation. There's so much software that's pre-installed. Well, that during the installation process, you can choose which ones you want. I think I just enable all of them because it's so much. It's one of those ways. That was the best thing about trying different distros when I first got started in open source software. Was that once you install a new distro, there's always some new software up there that you've never seen before, or that I had never seen before. There was, I think, what was a good example? I think Linux Korora that was based off of Fedora. They had a few apps that I had never seen before, and they weren't very actively maintained, but it was interesting to see that they existed nonetheless. I've talked about learning about CherryTree, the note-taking application from Linux Uberstudent, which is also based off Ubuntu. Ubuntu Studio it's got all the pre-configured apps, and it's pre-configured with Jack Audio, which is configuration that helps Linux users do audio work with audio interfaces and anything that does any audio production, I/O, input output equipment. You don't have to do all of this stuff on your own. I will say it wasn't too fun seeing about that whole Spectre Meltdown issue. That was just an entire mess. That just created issues just about everywhere. I wasn't a big fan of seeing how certain organizations had dealt with that. There was some good and bad, but simply put, that entire situation was a mess. But it definitely taught you, if you were interested in security, that probably taught you a few things in regards to how to protect yourself, with the defense in depth, and the layers that come with that. So unfortunately, a couple minutes in, I don't have much new to say about operating systems or distros, Linux distros. What I will be talking about is some of the new software that, open source software that I'll be using. Before that, I talked about the Spectre Meltdown, which was a pretty major event in 2018. Learning that IBM had acquired Red Hat, that was interesting. That's not something that I don't think I could have thought of at random. Just seems odd to me. And I don't have too much to say about the topic, except that I'm interested, and I'm going to be very watchful to see how that affects the Red Hat Enterprise Linux admin and engineer certifications, the whole path or branch of Fedora, CentOS, Red Hat distributions, and OpenShift. It's curious to see how those things change over time and the influence of IBM over that. Because there's a lot of people that don't need the support of Red Hat, but use that same system in the form of CentOS, the community version or the free version. So I'm gonna be real curious to see how that plays out throughout the next few years. So going over, there's 4 apps or software. There are 4 apps that I'm interested in. I got real interested in this year. The first one was Atom.io, the text editor. When I write HTML, when I'm writing anything that's eventually going to end up being a blog or an article, and I want to see the HTML immediately, in real time, which is always, if I'm writing the code, I want to see it immediately. There's different ways of doing it. There's different applications out there that does it. I think it's Brackets. There's Sublime. I think Sublime. Someone told me that Sublime had a preview plugin for it. I don't care for it because I think it's shareware. You can use it, but after a while, it's gonna ask you to pay. I don't want to deal with that. Notepad++. I don't know if that has the preview option. Remarkable is another one. It looked really nice. I think I tried it when I first read about it on some blog. It may have been TecMint. I'll put the link in the description. But I don't think it's being actively maintained right now. I'm not sure. But Remarkable was a pretty interface. But Atom.io has that stuff there already pre-installed. It was easy to figure out how to use it and get it going and have it in a single window so I can split my screen between what I'm writing and the result. So I can see it. And I said Markdown preview, but it does the HTML as well. I would liken it to the online collaboration web app Cryptpad, which I covered a year ago, maybe about a year ago in the past. I'll just be safe with saying I covered it in the past. You can write your bit and then you had another half of the screen where you saw exactly what you was doing. I like stuff like that. It's a lot easier than having to do. I think I did a YouTube video on it. There's a plugin that you can put in your browser where it immediately refreshes the page after a certain amount of seconds. And that way you can load the file, the HTML file in your browser, and it will just refresh it every couple seconds. With having an app that I can do that in the same screen, there's one less extension that I have to worry about in my browser for vulnerabilities, and it's built in. That's why I like Atom.io. Another one is Grav or Grave. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's a content management system or CMS similar to HTML, which hasn't been updated in a while, I don't think. But it's a CMS similar to WordPress or Joomla, Drupal, etc. It's open source, but it's databaseless, which is interesting. It's there's no database. Everything is stored in files, right? And it uses Markdown instead of HTML, CSS when you're doing your pages. And many people may hear Markdown and go, well, I don't want to have to learn another markup language. But in 2018, if you're doing a lot on the technical side in IT, you're probably using a Slack or GitHub, maybe a Mattermost, something like that. And that's Markdown you're using when you want to put the asterisks on each side to get bold, or the underscore on each side to get italics, etc., etc. That's Markdown. Or I think they call it the GitHub flavored Markdown for some of the more in-depth stuff. And Cryptpad, which I've talked about earlier, they use the same thing. If you wanted to be a certain H1, I don't remember it, but it's Markdown. So it's not hard to learn. You're probably already familiar with it somewhat. Even if you're not, it's not difficult. Use a special character and, on the end of a certain phrase to get a certain outcome. It's not hard, but it's elegant looking. It's nice. It's easy to learn. I think, and interested to see where that goes. I hope it sticks around for a while. I will say that WordPress is dominant because of how easy it is to use and how it works well for the beginner and the expert. When it comes to web design, web developers, depending on how you like to do things, you can do whatever you need to do with less plugins. Or if you don't know how to do much of anything, you can install all of the plugins so you don't have to do much at all. But as you grow and progress, you can, all right, I don't need a table plugin anymore. I know how to do this table, tr, td, etc. stuff. So I can just hard code this and remove this plugin instead of, depending on a short code and going somewhere else. That way you kind of consolidate. But Grav being databaseless, of course, you can still have issues with code injection and PHP issues. So I'm not simply saying that it's going to be a lot more secure than WordPress, but it does definitely change the type of issues you'll have to deal with. You don't have to worry about doing stuff in PHPMyAdmin or in a MySQL database, to figure things out. You'll be doing code. You'll be opening a text file and editing certain things, or you can use their CLI, their command line tool to do certain things as well, which is pretty easy. Another one was a Matomo, or formerly Pewick Analytics. I think this one is interesting because, like I tell plenty of people, not everybody wants to use Google for everything. Google isn't everything. Not everybody wants to use it all the time. People like options. There are going to be people who prefer to have options. There are going to be people who prefer to have something that looks different or something that's not completely connected to what everything else that they're already using. There's going to be someone who wants something that they have on their server. There's going to be someone who wants to have something that's more customizable or more streamlined or etc. I think Matomo is an interesting option to look into if you're looking for analytics. Sleek, it looks nice, it does what it needs to do, and like Atom.io and Grav, it's open source software. It's open source, it's free. Unlike Clicky is free, but they only give you a certain amount of days on a free plan. And Mixpanel, which I tell people about plenty of times, Mixpanel is, I don't honestly know how to describe it. What I usually tell people is that it's a analytics solution for the in-depth marketing and development team. Someone who's looking to get real deep into segmentation and customizing a website in according with certain specs. This user came from here. This user has this screen resolution, came from this IP address or this country. That's the geo IP stuff. Mixpanel not only does it allow you to do it, it encourages you to do it. It's set up to, urge you, hey, set this up so that you can get this to happen when this if then and wherever you want to use the JavaScript or the PHP, and it that's what it's for. Matomo it's kind of like I said about Grav, and when I was comparing Grav to WordPress, you can grow with it. So whatever it is you want to do, there are certain things you can change, especially when it comes to that GDPR that happened a couple months ago. The GDPR compliance, I don't remember what it stood for, but that came from the EU and changed privacy concerns, and can you press this button to remove data, or you need to, or let it be known that you're respecting the privacy tracking settings, etc. A lot of that stuff is easy. It's set up in a nice way that's easy to navigate. It's something interesting, something worth checking out. Oh, another thing I didn't mention is Grav and Matomo Analytics. They're both, if you have the web server or web hosting plan, it's probably in this product, this software installer on web servers called Softaculous. It's probably in there, so you can press a button and install it if you don't want to do it on your own, manually. Grav isn't difficult at all. Grav is import. You download a file from the website, getgrav.org, GRAV. So getgrav.org. You go there, you install. I normally recommend the Grav plugin, the Grav admin plugin, then they call it Grav plus admin plugin. So you download that and upload to your server. You extract that, and it walks you through setting up an admin account and brings you right into your dashboard. So your admin dashboard to do whatever it is you need to do, which is great for anyone that doesn't want to have to be in the command line the entire time. Now, Matomo Analytics requires a database. That's one of the steps when you're installing it. It's not difficult though. It can be a little challenging with someone that may just feel uncomfortable doing certain things like that in cPanel, but it's not difficult. Create a database, create a user, connect them, make sure you remember the user password, the MySQL username and password, and that information, and go through. And side note, Matomo Analytics, I was looking at the website, have an integrations page, and looking at their site, I got curious, looking at all the plugins that they recommended, and I came across this e-commerce CMS called 30bees. So it's spelled out the word 30, but it's just from the number 30, not 30 as in it's a bunch of dirt all over the floor. 30bees, it's forked from PrestaShop 1.6, if I'm not mistaken, and its theme is black and yellow. I don't remember much about the differences. They have a article talking about it. I can link that below. But that was just a random thing that came to my mind. And the last one would be Ampache Music Player. Ampache Music Player. There you go. Yeah. And I'll probably cover this more in the music podcast that I plan on doing. Since that's what I've been doing so much of. I'm finally getting real deep into my music. But Ampache Music Player is it's a web app where you can import music catalogs and streaming, and it's an online music player. It's really all I can say about it for right now because I'm still learning the basics with it. But it is an interesting concept. I'm not sure how well it's maintained as of now, or what the developers' goals are with it. But clicking around, I like the concept. So I'll play around with that, and hopefully I can talk a little bit more about it, or somebody tells me something about something that does the same thing but maybe better. And I could probably find something like that on alternative2.net as well. Just curious. But yeah, so I'd like to apologize if you looked at this and was hoping for more about Linux operating system, Linux distributions. I haven't been messing with that. I still can just encourage you, for the 20th time, check out Ubuntu Studio. Most of what I've been doing this year, though, has been in music. So the biggest newest things I've been messing around with this year was on the Atom.io text editor, the Grav CMS, the Ampache music player CMS, and Matomo Analytics, or formerly Piwik. That's really just about it as far as going into open source software and Linux and new things for me in 2018. Everything else is mostly jtspratly.com, creating a hub for all the stuff that I do, all the projects that I do, and trying to stay relevant and trying not to let the blog at golivelively.com go too stale by putting content up there every once in a while. So I appreciate you listening. If you want to hear more, I encourage you to check out the blog, the YouTube channel. Check out jtspradley.com for the music, the other places that I'm writing at, and the other projects that I work on. I'm still trying to do a lot of reorganizing and arranging everything in the way that makes more sense. And that's all I got for you. Go live lively.